Hello and welcome again to Indiepocalypse Radio. You're somewhere between an interview show and a post-con hangout. I'm your host Andrew. I am. Oh, my title is doubly accurate. So yeah, a lot of times I like to prep my stream portion of it like during the show, but sometimes or during the pre-show. But sometimes I just talk and I forget to do that. Speaking of talking, the person I was talking to, if you were here pre-show, we have life struck, so we have one guest. But our one guest you may know from our work with Critical for let's just say the past 11 years, as I discovered during our pre-chat. It's Natalie. Natalie, how are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me again.
No, glad to have you back. That is, like I was telling you before, there's like so many people that it's like, I wish game devs were like acting and comedy people, and they just all had 8 million podcasts that they were always inviting each other onto.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is kind of how it becomes after
Right.
a certain point.
Right. We just have a lot fewer of them, and we. You as well as someone who hosts a long-running podcast, you tend to be like, I want to get new people on before I just keep inviting the same people on,
Mm-hmm. I've had one recurring guest so far.
Right.
Maybe we'll do more in the future. Who could say?
Right, and I only have recurring to the extent where I'm like, because for a while there I was like, I got to get 3 per. I don't know why I decided I need to have 3 per. But I mean, I still try to get 3 per, at least. But that racks up a lot faster. But if people are unfamiliar, and I feel like this is a cross section where where this would be extremely not the case. But if people were unfamiliar, how would you describe Critical?
Yeah, so Critical is a indie games criticism publication and podcast network that's been around for technically over a decade, though probably
Right.
its actual like recognizable form is probably closer to 4 or 5 years at this point. Things changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool place to read interesting thoughts about video games and
Yes.
to hear interviews with people making cool stuff in and around games. Kind of like this show.
Right.
So if you like this, you'd probably like the stuff
Yes.
that we do at Critical.
Yeah. No. It is like, very early on, I had a very particular anxiety where it's like I can't invite Critical or guest people on until they talk about it, the thing that I do, because it feels like cheating or something, or it feels like. But now I can just, it is, because the critical end is also like, you talk about doing it for so long. I say, I've said on the show kind of a couple times, and I think fellow, indie game critic Lotus, I think, said something similar to the effect of, to be that kind of like, when people go, oh, why isn't there more X criticism or more X this or that? It's kind of like, you just kind of got to do it a long time and eat shit, and have no one pay attention to you until you just exist for a long time. Like, I think it's hard just to break straight through and be like, oh yeah, no, and everyone's like, oh yes, finally the long-standing critical site, let's all jump on board or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, I find those comments always kind of funny.
Right.
What they're really asking for is, why doesn't like IGN publish
Right.
long form like art essays?
Yes.
And it's like you've misunderstood the media landscape. Like, what you're asking for is not conducive to the forces of profit necessary
Right.
to run these large media apparatuses, and that's frustrating, as are a lot of things in our current social structure. But
Right. Weird how most of those
it
things
does
all
feel
revolve
kind
around.
of like,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, just kind of like I don't know. You're spending a lot of energy complaining about like a very small portion of a larger issue.
Right.
And if you really just want to read good criticism, it's definitely out there.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be in the places that show up on, the the game awards show.
Right. It's not coming across your Twitter for you tab. You know.
Hmm.
You have to like actively seek it out, which part of there's a part of me that kind of wants like all social media to die, uh, because that I think that's like the hurdle between people just like actively searching things out a lot more. Is this kind of like
Mm.
a content personal feed style, which I think is just terrible, uh, um, in terms of like finding and looking for new things. But
Yeah, I mean, it's like again, it's I don't think it's like technological so much as what are the motivations of the people that run social media
right,
sites, and
right,
it's not to show you cool stuff. It's to show you whatever keeps you on the platform longest.
right. It's just to keep themselves getting paid still.
Yeah, it like almost all media is uh, just about advertising.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, uh, which is like the benefit you don't have. In a sense, everybody's own website is advertising themselves, but the platonic ideal of the internet is not an ad, despite the fact that it keeps increasingly turning into that.
Yeah, I mean it's just a technology. It has many varieties of applications.
Yes.
Many of them bad because we live in a imperialist capital system. But I there's nothing like particularly inherent with the internet
Right.
that that demands it be used primarily for advertising.
No, no, it's just like a tree, or like you can post signs on that tree, but nothing about that tree is inherent to having signs posted on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a thing that just kind of exists.
Mm-hmm. The tree would probably prefer not to have signs posted on it.
I know, I would bet. Like if I was just like minding my own business and just someone just nails something into me that says no posting, and I'm like, couldn't you just leave the no posting sign off of me as well?
Mm-hmm.
But that is not the case. But that is I don't want to complain about. Like the thing is, like I feel increasingly as as someone who is on the receiving end of my I think I send this to you sometimes in your post year roundup of I feel increasingly alienated from what games are.
Mm.
And I'm not sure like what it is or like how I fit into it or how anything fits into it sometimes. Like
I mean, I feel like even running Indiepocalypse for long enough at this point, and including there are games in each issue, so there must be something like
yes, people do keep making games.
tethering you. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the benefit of our work is that there will always be people making new games. So you will never run out of people to talk to and to like games to cover and games to explore because there's people every like. But that's also where my anxiety of social media comes from because sometimes I will get like something like will come through my submissions and it has like I don't know one itch review at best and the person has no social media platform. And then I'm like, but also I'm like, oh my god, this game is amazing. But it's like, how would anyone
Yep.
ever find
Yep.
this?
Yeah, I am begging any indie developers who would like um, me to lightly promote their work and or just flatter them by talking to them for an
Yes.
hour, please put your email on your itch page.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
yes. Can I second this? If you're on the internet, just put your email somewhere where somebody can find it. I mean, I will. If you put it on the internet at any point, I will find it. I've gotten very good at that. But you don't really get that. I never get any spam, and my email is publicly accessible on
No.
multiple sites.
I occasionally do, but it's always very funny. It's
Right.
It's people trying to sell me on SEO packages for
Yes.
my weirdo art website. Like, yes, that's what I'm looking for. Actually, thank you.
Oh, I guess you're right. I do occasionally get people who be like, "Oh, would you like me to translate your game into multiple languages?" And I'm like, "I don't have a game. I mean, do you want to translate 10 games in 10 different engines, one of which might be a 3-hour-long visual novel?" But I think they're just like probably clicking on the itch front page and being like emailing everyone who has an email.
Yeah, it's definitely just like automated scraping. I occasionally get through the if you're listening, you can pitch your essays to contact@critical.com.
Yes.
But occasionally I'll get essay pitch. You can't see I'm doing air quotes here.
Right, right.
Pitches for basically spam articles, often about treadmills for some reason. There's something on my site that seems to draw treadmill manufacturers to want to commission guest posts.
That's
I need to figure out what that is.
that is a weird, like, I feel like you're getting small glimpses on like this side of the internet that I'm aware exists, of this kind of like, it's just ads. It's just like not real anything. It's just piles of websites that are just all basically functionally ads. Or, or
And
just-
it's bi-directional ads. You know, you swap guest articles being just a very thinly veiled advertisement.
right.
And that's most of what you'll find, just like trying to Google anything now.
Yeah, no, I've, you know, there's every Googling anything, there's that kind of like the second, like the very first search suggestion is also is always what you Googled, and then Reddit at the end, because for whatever distaste I have to ever visiting that website, there are human beings on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I woe to me to be needing to commission advice from Redditors, but here I am.
But they are theoretically living people, who are asking.
That is, I have been seeing different companies spring up that are basically like offering fake Redditors to promote their product as like because this is so common now of people
Right.
just looking to Reddit instead of search. So it's like, we're just gonna buy a bunch of high value accounts and then just go into like, you know, someone's asking about, you know, treadmills, which to buy, and just write a post posing as just a happy treadmill owner that mentions your brand name a lot.
That is. The idea of just like selling accounts, and like also like salute to the people who like make one of those like historic moments in alt metal or whatever, and then they get 1 million followers and they just sell their account. It's like, yeah, right, do that. Who cares? You already had like a real nothing of like a functionally reposting account, I guess. If someone's gonna pay you $10,000 for that account so that they can turn it into NFT slop or whatever.
It's very funny seeing what at one point was like a weird black market industry now just being like regular startups.
Right.
Which I guess is how how the path tends to go.
Yeah, it's like, these people keep asking their friends to give them lifts to the airport. What if we just made everyone your friend, but you paid them, and undercut the existing industry, but by simply calling it something else? The secret of tech of calling it something else.
Mm-hmm. Just change a couple letters, remove some vowels.
Right.
I wouldn't know anything about this.
No. Well, I mean, that's the natural thing of the internet. I'm loath to change my screen name because it has good SEO.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally conquered that with Indiepocalypse, where now I'm a couple little articles sneak in every now and then about like, aren't there too many indie games? But
Many are saying this.
people are always saying that there are too many indie games. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but there's too many indie games that come out every day, and you actually have to play every single one of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very exhausting.
Yeah.
I don't get very much sleep. Keeping up with all these new games.
Being on the cutting edge of things, I have to play all of them. I was not at all playing Kirby Superstar Ultra before this show.
That's my favorite indie game.
I'm playing nothing but new video games. Though I realized that I am still mildly obsessed with that game because it's such a fascinating thing and it's so cool. Of just like a little thing of all these different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of video games, I have a question for you about a certain not a specific question, I suppose, but a certain I want to call him a rascally rodent, but a certain video game rodent. Tell me a little bit about Sonic. Have you been getting into Sonic? Or you've been into Sonic, I suppose. I worry that
I don't know what happened.
Yes.
Something happened a couple years ago, and now I'm Sonic pilled, and there's no hope for me.
You're full, and I was worried that like I was stealing you from Sonic Time today.
No, that actually wasn't you. That was other things. You have snuck in right before normally scheduled Sonic Time.
Okay, phew. I would never want to what's the word I'm thinking about? Step on Sonic's red and white shoes.
No, you can't pull me away from my husband.
No, I wouldn't want to. But I mean, Sonic he's doing well. He's been actually like, for a guy who's been like down the dumps for a long time, I feel like he's having a little bit of a renaissance.
Yeah, they're re-releasing one of the most mid Sonic games, so things are going pretty good.
Okay, now I'm on top of I'm not on top of video game news, and that could be any number of Sonic the Hedgehog video games. Are we talking Sonic and the Black Knight?
No, that one actually seems pretty sick.
Okay. Are we talking Sonic Adventure 2?
No, that one's sublime. That's a seminal video game.
So
if anyone calls that mid, they're out of their mind.
Okay, Sonic 06 classically considered bad. So Sonic Colors?
They already released that one, also extremely mid.
Right, because that was like Sonic Colors Remix or something.
Yeah, it ran like shit.
3D Blast? Is that a Sonic game?
No, they should have released that again. They should release specifically the Saturn version because they never released that version.
3D Blast is the one that has the heavy modding scene, right? Or am I thinking of something else? No. Or am I thinking?
I don't believe so.
I'm thinking of a Sonic game that I think was like some kind of as like a Sonic like. I'm thinking of something that was made in Doom, and then think someone made a Sonic thing inside of that, maybe.
Certainly possible.
Is it from the chat? Is it Mean Bean Machine?
No, they'll never release that again. They've neglected this bastard child of Puyo Puyo.
Right. I guess because Puyo Puyo is taken off in the West, so there's no longer any need for that. Yes, River Blast.
Yeah. Nobody needs Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine anymore.
No, we have Puyo at home now. And it's the real Puyo, not like the way you would have it, not like the Bean Machine version. I give up. There are too many big Sonic games.
It's Sonic Generations.
Oh, okay.
The reason you need to know, you
Yes.
can always tell if a Sonic game is mid is when normal game critics like it.
Oh, okay. And they go, oh, so they go, Sonic is back.
He's back, yeah. Finally, a good Sonic game after the drought of 20 years.
I do. I,
No, Sonic Generations is perfectly serviceable and very boring, and they're re-releasing it, and they're gonna fucking get me because they're putting a bunch of new Shadow content in, which doesn't
oh,
look very good, but I will play it.
one of these days, I want to really think about Shadow the Hedgehog.
Hey, it's the year of Shadow. Start thinking about him.
I,
Contemplate that boy.
I have been like playing games recently just based on like retro achievements has just like to do like weekly challenges and things like that, and like
Hmm.
and I've been using that as like, yeah, I'll play 1942 for the NES. I'm gonna perfect time to start playing Haunting
Pretty
Ground.
good game.
Oh, it's a real piece of shit. It's got terrible sound, and it's like 8 hours long of the same thing over and over again. Oh, well, I assume you're talking about Haunting Ground. Is it a good game?
Oh no,
No.
I meant 1942.
Yes. No. I did beat it though. I did play it all the way through. For some reason.
Mm-mm.
But I feel like Shadow the Hedgehog might show up on there at some point, and kind of like
Yeah, sounds like a pretty sick video game. I've not gotten to it yet.
Right, right.
So my for folks who aren't aware, who aren't tapped into
Yes.
the culture,
Right,
you don't know about up and coming events from your favorite streamer. I have been playing all of the Sonic games in release order for the last couple months. We're currently up to Sonic Adventure, so eventually we'll get to Shadow the Hedgehog in probably next year at this rate.
Yeah, that's the thing about like, especially when you're like, I've thought about that before in terms of like people doing that kind of coverage for like content, you know, and realizing
Hmm.
like how long that actually takes.
Yeah. I mean, it took a year and a half and change to do a podcast playing 3 games.
Right. And I powered through like, I don't know, a dozen and a half FromSoft games in a couple months maybe, just over the course of.
That's too many. I would say.
Oh, it was a beautiful thing. I got fully like truly appreciate like that mid. It truly, it's like mid in the best ways, you know.
Mm,
It's that kind of like, people were not ready for this stuff. They were like so like 50 to 60 Metacritic score style games for like a decade.
mhm. I do quite want to go back and play the older Armored Core games.
Oh
They
yeah,
seem they seem particularly interesting.
yeah, they are. I can't remember when I dropped off and kind of got Tails injected into my brain. Tails, sorry, not Tails. It's the Sonic's
Tails
friend.
the Fox,
Not
Miles Tails
Ta-
Prower.
not Tails, Sonic's friend.
I'm not interested anymore.
Tails with all the anime people, no, but not
Mm,
not the anime people that kiss hedgehogs. The other anime people that talk to each other all the time.
mm-hmm.
And then I kind of like. Sometimes I don't even play video games. It's weird how you can just do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You can also
I've
just
been playing remarkably few video games, all things considered.
right. I pretty much only play games on the weekend if I play games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, work quote unquote video games aside, you know.
Yeah, my game playing is almost entirely organized around the various external obligations I've compelled myself to take upon.
Right, because you also
So
have a book club, right, or like a game
yeah,
club.
yeah,
Yes.
game club, which is book club for games basically.
Right.
Um, we do fighting tournaments now.
Yes,
So
no,
play
I was
fighting games.
I was seeing that you're on Melty Blood. That was that the that's
Oh,
the
you're quite late to the party,
yes.
unfortunately.
No, well, I mean
We
it.
did play Melty Blood several months ago.
Yes,
Very good video game.
I'm glad that people are on the Melty train more recently because I remember like
Mm-hmm.
importing that PS2 one and being
Oh
like,
wow.
this game is nuts. Uh, there was a time where like we were playing a lot of fighting games, so we were like importing like Melty Blood, like Arcana Heart, and just
On
like
that freak shit.
right, whatever game we could get our hands on, like we just had like piles and piles, because we were we were kids who got a copy of Marvel too, and it does things to your brain when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's coming out again too.
That's saving, honestly, if I can be, that saved video games. That's the only
Same
video.
video games, yeah.
It's
Mhm.
truly the only video.
I've never played it, so
Oh,
I'm curious.
it's incredible. It's like not balanced.
Great.
Like there's a clear like imbalance between like playing a Servbot and playing like Sentinel.
Hmm.
But it is very much like Capcom like throwing all the different Morgan has a very different art from like Ryu because they're coming from different games. They're just like
Hmm.
it's just like Mugen-ish in that way.
It's an inexplicable thing to exist in my head.
Right? Yeah. No. It's
The amount of characters that they fit in there. I was looking at this last night actually, because it came up while we were playing Street Fighter 6, which is our current
yes.
game, fight game of the month. And there's just fucking like 60 characters or something in that game.
Yeah. There was Thanos in 2000 when literally nobody knew. I remember playing like, who is this Thanos guy? And like never played as him.
56 characters. That is like Smash Brothers level
Yeah.
of insanity.
And they're mostly like all different. I mean, there's occasional like Iron Man and War Machines or whatever. Your Ryu Kens. But like Capcom also goes like deep. So you get like Sansan and like all these like what's that guy from Star Gladiator?
Could not tell you. I definitely did not recommend or did not recognize a lot of the Capcom characters, which was quite surprising.
Yeah, no, there's like you're not fully familiar with Captain Commando?
I don't know this one.
You did not also import Namco X Capcom and realize I can't play this game. There's too much Japanese in it. But it had all those people in it, all those characters. It has a lady from Valkyrie no Densetsu in it. We don't have that in the West. I don't think we do, at least. But that is like aside the fact. I'm just Googling things for no reason now. But yeah, no, that is like. And I think like having a book club, I guess having a game club. A lot of people still do call them book clubs.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we also have a book club, so
Right.
we have to keep them separate.
But like having
The
game
book
club.
the book
yeah.
club is reading the Brothers Karamazov. So
Yes.
if you wanna get into some classic 19th century Russian literature, swing by.
Sometimes I do, but
It's pretty sick, I will say. Pretty funny.
yeah, it's weird when like you go back to something that's like a classic. Oh, this thing's sick.
Hmm.
It feels like a silly way to say that,
I read Moby Dick over like a span of a year and absolutely loved it. I'm fully old pilled.
I remember like at work on like on my phone on free breaks. When I read like the Metamorphosis, I'm like, this is funny. This is good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think high school can kind of take that joy of reading out of you.
Oh, for sure.
And like,
I was homeschooled and did not read any of these books,
oh,
so I just sidestepped that little classic character arch.
right, right, of being like, oh, this is miserable when I'm forced to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like also forced to explain it and write essays about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, I think that's just like a very specific way of thinking that some people just like don't probably have, of like,
Yeah, I think I resented something about the requirement to do it.
right,
It felt very insignificant
right, because
and sort of arbitrary.
it kind of feels the need to like take your interpretation with a piece of art and fit into like this, I don't know, 5 paragraph essay, which can be hard.
Hmm. You also just probably do not have any framework to actually understand what you're reading because you are a child.
Yes, right, right. And so much stuff like I forgot you have like 6 uh a game club, a movie club, or not a movie club, but you know what I mean.
It's a movie club.
Yeah, and like, and you've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yep. Yeah, we try and keep stuff happening. Come tune into Anime Church on Sundays.
Yes, and
We're
it's
about to start Odd Taxi.
that's the Animal Taxi one.
Yeah. It seems pretty good. I've heard good things.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's one of those things where like kind of it's got a decent look to it. I like the look. My
Mhm.
I am definitely often judging anime books by their cover.
I mean, it is a visual medium.
Yes, and I'm like, oh, this looks uh like house style, but not house style, but
Hmm.
there's a turn off kind of thing. But there is now has your June one passed? The
Our
June has the June movie club passed?
June Movie Club has passed. We did a double feature
Yes.
of Pooh's Grand Adventure: The Search for Christopher Robin, and Daisies, a 1966 surreal Czech movie. Uh,
Yes.
Very interesting combination.
Now, because I was curious, did you find the connective tissue between the two? Did you find one in your heart?
Um, yes, but could I explain to you what it was? No, absolutely
Right.
not.
No, that's. I
But you
think
could feel it.
right, but I've seen one half of this collection. I've seen Daisies, and that's also
Hmm.
a thing where I couldn't necessarily easily explain it to somebody.
Hmm.
My feelings. I remember. It's something I've thought about with art, more like especially in like this sort of in this sort of modern landscape. We were talking about a movie with friends, and there was like you can't. We came with this notion of like could we wanted to someone hadn't seen it, we were going to talk about it, and we talked about like the ending, but we're like, can you spoil the ending? And it's like I don't think you can actually spoil this movie. Like they like
I do not think you can spoil it.
like,
I
like
think it is way too much of a aesthetic oriented movie.
right.
To describing it in any way doesn't really get anywhere close to the actual experience.
Right, and I think like a lot of art falls into that category where it's like you can't really spoil it. uh,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, I'm not gonna go to the museum because someone's told me about the paintings already.
I already know what kind of earring that girl has. Do I need to see the painting? you know. But that I've also heard people be like, oh, but also just knowing what the picture is, like it's a different experience to like see it in person and to like see it like in intimate detail.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I took 3 years of art history, and none of those were as significant as the first time I went to like an actually good art museum and just saw paintings in person.
Right, because you see like the human of it, I guess. You can see like the actual art. It's it's that classic. Oh no, I'm blanking on her name. Oh no. That comic artist that's been around forever. She picks up the baby gets picked up and they look at the art that looks like them.
I'm not sure I know this.
I forget who it is. Oh no. I'll get it eventually. It'll come to my brain eventually. But and I think that's like also difficult for like. I imagine that's difficult like from not to be a critic, but when you take kind of criticism to like a larger audience, and why I think it can be why I imagine it's probably difficult to like try to go quote unquote broader with stuff and be like if that makes sense, like have like a trying to be like, oh, I've got a deeper understanding of this sort of thing, or it's not as shareable. It's hard to describe maybe even this kind of sentiment I'm trying to express.
You mean like trying to explain a piece of art,
Right.
like without the like greater context around
Right.
it?
That and like being like, oh, I it is Linda Barry. Yes, it was Linda Barry. Thank you. P Thief in the chat. But I guess if people are looking for answers and you're like, oh, I don't really have a full answer. This is so very much my. I mean, games have an eternal struggle with. This is my personal experience. It's like, how can I have a personal? And people are like, how can you have a personal experience with gameplay? It's either good or it's bad. Or.
I mean, I think both are kind of limited in terms of their like critical utility,
Right.
in the sense that like art does exist in the material world and is interacting with history and culture and other forces, and like that to me is sort of the interesting and significant parts that I would want to talk about. I'm much less interested in just in my own like emotional response to a work. Like that can be like very powerful, but like it's like trying to tell someone like your dream. Like it doesn't mean the same thing to someone else, and it kind of starts to break down.
Right.
The more detached you go. So that's sort of the direction I tend to take.
Yeah,
criticism.
I often find with criticism I really enjoy like it is not someone like explaining themselves, but you feel like you kind of understand a person more through their writing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they like you sort of get like ideally like you get from the context like the stuff that might be explicitly stated in like a more like this is how XY made me feel,
Mm-hmm.
You sort of like understand how a person felt about that sort of thing. And games are an especially weird thing because there is like that technical like almost unavoidable technical standpoint to it, like a game can just like not work well.
Mm-hmm. But even that can be interesting. Like,
right.
Why doesn't it work? Or like what different effects does it not working in these particular ways bring about? Like, I'm very interested in games that have weird glitches that sort of change how you engage with them, or like games where you can go out of bounds and find weird stuff. Like, all of analgesics games are really cool about engaging sort of the artifice of games in their text.
It feels like their work very much engages with like games as a medium outside of just kind of like making Zelda, or
mm-hmm.
like Angelina are inspired by like old Falcom and like Bump East and stuff like that, but it's not like I think you can find there's a lot of versions of that where it's like someone making their version of Ys.
Yeah, where it's more then it becomes more of like almost a tech demo or just like specifically like not parody in the sense of
Right.
like making fun of it, but like I guess derivative in that sense.
It's a thing I think about sometimes, and I try not to be too mean about them. When people make like uh, spiritual successors, I guess I'll call them, to
Yeah,
works. But they don't seem to add anything of their own. They just like I made a different version of Crazy Taxi, I guess. But it's just basically that. But
yeah,
not
it's very odd to me. I feel like spiritual successor is a very kind of worthless term most of the
right.
time it's being used. Like to me, what that a meaningful way I would see that applied would be if it was like I guess I mean this has happened with many games where it's like developers of old game decide to make a new one,
Yeah.
but it's like they don't have the licensing to it, or it's like partially a new team or whatever. Stuff like ukulele or whatever.
Right. Right.
Um, and like that's more interesting because that's like there is a development history there that you're pulling on very explicitly, more so than just like the cultural idea of this game that people remember, and like how seeing how the people who make a work sort of respond to it later is can be very interesting to me. I mean, sometimes it is
Yeah.
not
Yes.
that extensive. Sometimes it is very it is more in the derivative part, which
Right.
is it's still.
Where they're just like now parodying, mirroring their own works. Uh,
Hmm.
but it is kind of like people exploring like thematic. I think you, it comes up less commonly. I think maybe in games than other mediums sometimes because of just like the sequel software element of it, but
Hmm.
theoretically when someone goes and makes like their own their quote unquote own version of something, they're still exploring like the same sorts of like themes and approaches and like gameplay. I think people often overlook exploration of themes and like uh, you know artistic
People love
expression
to
through.
overlook themes.
Right, yes, in general. Yes. But um, people who do that in gameplay, um, like who have like who explore gameplay a lot, like because the obvious thing is be like, oh yeah, this the game is saying things with its story. um,
Hmm.
but
It's true.
I think that's like the benefit of someone who like I think is this your most recent was she your most recent interview, Sylvie, or close to it?
Uh, that was a couple months ago as well.
Time just keeps flying by. Um, but because Sylvia's someone who does a lot of like gameplay. Analgesic is the same way. They do a lot of like gameplay
Hmm.
exploration. Um,
Yeah.
and you see someone very much expressing themselves like through gameplay, which I think especially sometimes in the indie scene, um, in the alt indie scene, kind of sometimes in that weird little tiny
Hmm.
microcosm, tends to focus on like story and narrative as like
Hmm.
um, alternative ways of making games.
Hmm. Yeah. Sylvie's also just very interesting because she's also doing like you know making the bump combat ease sequel, but it's also like informed by this other obscure like uh I forget even what the old computer format is that
Right.
like Metal Gear and shit was on.
Oh, the
Old arcade
MSX.
games and yeah, yeah, just like it is like seeing ideas in other art and being like let me like riff on that
Yeah.
and like do something more. Like not just trying to like remind you of X experience, which I think is I would I'm maybe being like a little a little mean to a lot of these games, but that's
Yeah.
about as far as I would say most of them, like most like spiritual successors, quote unquote, get
Yeah.
as far as like actually engaging with their original work.
Right. That's where I feel like a lot of, if I could be mean for a moment, where a lot of, I don't know, capital I indie stuff kind of falls into, of like
Mm-hmm.
engaging with like the broad surface level aesthetics of something,
Sure.
and not really like reinterpreting them. It's not like funneling it through yourself. It's kind of like you're reflecting something rather than like digesting it and uh, I don't know, using it yourself. I was like, oh, what do human beings do when they digest things? I don't want to end this metaphor that way. um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, the the thing I like to on this often to describe people, because it's the thing a lot of people know, is like, I think Star Wars is a really good example of this. Of like,
Mm-hmm.
you see all of Lucas's weird stuff that he likes in like the first Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, oh, look at that, he likes Kurosawa movies and like Flash Gordon serials and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like other Star Wars movies, people like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of art broadly has become very market driven, so it's
right.
not like surprising because ultimately you're like selling your game to a public and a
Right.
mostly indirect public, or not even that, you're selling it to a publisher, and that's why you get 800 cozy farming simulators that all look the same.
Yeah. Why are they all
Or
animals?
I don't know. um watching the Summer Games Fest content really like did some existential damage on me. Like just this specifically around the the omnipresence and positioning of wholesome slash cozy games.
Yeah. No,
That was just inescapable.
I have a lot of. It's unsurprising that Sony spends a lot of time within indie game space. I have a lot of feelings about the idea of wholesome. um, but it's weird because I also consider it to be, this would probably not fit into this category, but also uh, uh, recent guest of yours. I think in a lot of ways Perfect Tides has a lot of wholesomeness to it, but it's also extremely messy, so it wouldn't fit into like wholesome direct, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, no. I mean, Perfect Ties is interesting because it's like pulling more from a comics background than
Yes.
a games background, which, you know, uh, game developers having hobbies outside of video games is cool. Hobbies and influences.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's like the difference between like game with bright colors and like cute character designs, uh, not really what the like wholesome descriptor or even like cozy or whatever they call them now, like what that's really gesturing at, which is like kind of a specific mode of play, uh, largely centered around like it's like it's an expansion on like casual games, but
Yeah.
somehow more uh I find it more tiring. Maybe because I find sort of a charm in casual games and sort of their
Yeah.
weird, almost amateurish quality, versus wholesome games feeling like. I mean, this isn't even fair because casual games are kind of like factory shipped out in terms of like being
Yeah.
very, very similar to one another. Um, so I guess it is actually the same thing as casual games, but I'm not sure. There's something about just the marketing position that
Yeah. No,
it's
I see the difficulty in trying to describe, but I kind of get what you're saying. Uh, um,
it feels entirely like market oriented, more
yes.
so than like anything like to the it's like every trailer ending in a dog being pet. Like
Yes.
not even exaggerating. Like it happened many times. Like
And
the trailer would end and then there'd be like a little post trailer bit showing you can pet the dog. Like
well,
like it's become it's like meme worthy almost.
right. Well, 'cause that's how you get like. Now, so petting the dog. All right. That.
I like to pet the dog, but like
But
there's like yeah, like
I
KDX2A said, like it's very calculated.
yes.
It's quite it feels quite hollow
I
and
I think I might have joked once to Ash K, who made the launcher that I use, of like could we add a dog into the Indiepocalypse launcher that you can pet, so I can get a million free views on it.
you can get on that Twitter account.
Yeah, but even that Twitter account, like it's like a perfect encapsulation of like how everybody is just like has no aesthetic or no belief in anything, and they're just kind of like chasing that bag. Because I'm like, they're like in it was like in Elden Ring, a slime briefly gets pet by something. It's like that's so far afield from like this your gimmick account, but Elden Ring DLC just came out, so that's why you're making this post.
Yeah.
And I guess it just doesn't mean anything. Like, this could just be those treadmill people. It feels like it has the same spark of humanity as the treadmill posters.
It does. It does. It does actually have SEO driven blog content.
Yeah,
Energy to me.
and that is. I think that's what it is. Is it doesn't feel like something. And I tell people about. I forget the exact. That Melisantani blog about dead games. I tell people about constantly because I think it's a perfect encapsulation of it. Especially when people ask me about like, oh, how do you curate things, and I go, I look for that like spark of a human inside of it. For whatever like perfect or imperfect or quote unquote good or bad a game is or whatever, I'm like, oh, I feel like there's a human here. Like somebody needed to make this and get it out of them. And that's what I found myself like most drawn to. Is like, I don't know, a sense that a person had to make something, and that like nobody else would have inherently made it. Although of course there's plenty of things that plenty of people would have made, or maybe they wouldn't have. Who knows? Like it's all big and complicated,
Mm-hmm.
And I think about games a lot, understandably, I guess.
I try and think about games less these days.
Yeah, right. I think about games a lot in context to if like with other things, and don't ask me what video games came out in the year 2024. I could not tell you. But it turns out, like with any good art, if it was good yesterday, it will be good in 10 years probably. Like usually, unless it's an extremely topical piece, it usually doesn't have a shelf life to it. And often removed from time. I mean, I think that's a benefit of like doing like game clubs and book clubs, right? is like revisiting these things and like sort of recontextualizing them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do tend to go towards older stuff, or I mean, not that old, but
Right.
stuff that is not contemporary. I mean, this upcoming month we are playing a new game, but that's relatively rare.
Like, have you found any sort of like surprise favorites of something that's like, you know, that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten into, were it not just like, hey, let's all have a game club together?
Yeah, the Friends of Ringo Ishikuro
Okay.
is all timer.
Yes.
Beat 'em up, life, like high school simulator, about being a delinquent. Really excellent.
Yes. Yeah.
The developer has not been able to to match it in their future games, unfortunately, but very much a really cool, unique, singular game that I probably wouldn't have played had we not done it for Game Club.
Yeah, it is. I'm, as they say, very Shenmue pilled, you know. So it is kind of like right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Yes. No, there's,
Think about it all the time.
and I think that's like, I've been doing a lot of email interviews lately with people who very clearly don't know the thing, who like are just like regurgitating a press release they're reading, which is exhausting, like in its own way.
Yes.
The realization that I don't actually want just people to cover the thing. I want people to actually care about it. As it turns out, I realized. But people ask me like, "Oh, what can you tell our readers?" And I'm like, "For the love of God, just like try to explore something you haven't played before or tried before. Like, it, you know, just like don't necessarily pay attention to what is on Summer Games or what is on Twitter or what is anywhere popular. Just like take a random recommendation from something and give it a try. Maybe you'll love it. Maybe you'll think about it constantly. Maybe you'll hate it and it'll be miserable. But like, I don't know. Life is not so big that we can play. Oh, there is no one. But we are approaching an hour to this show, which is kind of like, I think, a good cutoff for like a solo show.
Yeah, it's been good talk. I don't know what I said, but
oh yeah,
it was probably smart and well thought through.
I think
that's
that's
everything I say is
right. Isn't that online of oh yeah, I did a podcast. And then people tell the thing you said back to you and they go, I don't remember what I said. I was just talking to another person for like an hour.
Yeah, having your conversations recorded, kind of weird, actually.
Yeah, but it's a trick that we do to have each other, that give an excuse to talk to each other. Much like a book club and a movie club and a game club.
Yeah. If anyone would like to talk to me more, come join our many of our clubs. You can pick which one sounds appealing to you at any given month.
Yeah,
or you can just talk about Sonic. That's fine too.
Yes, all about the Chows, Big the Cat, the other ones, that robot.
You're doing so well.
Fang.
Okay, that is a weird one. Weird poll.
Well, I'm of course a big Sonic the Fighters fan, of course.
As you should be.
Where your club's at? I think you just find them through Critical. If you just go to Critical and then you have your Discord just like right on the top of your main page, I believe, right?
Yep, critical.com or critical.com/Discord will take you right there.
Oh, you know, Allie, you're on top of things of just like, if you got a URL, just slash the thing you're looking for. It will get you there.
URL redirects, pretty
Yes.
sick.
No, I keep telling people, even if you don't have your own website, just get a URL, and just redirect it to things.
Honestly, especially if you don't have your own website,
Yes.
please just buy domains and just link them in your bios. Some random person followed me on Letterboxd recently,
Yeah.
and their website just went to like a NeoCities page of a bunch of animal pictures, and
Yeah.
that was all it was.
Right. Don't need to have
Beautiful.
anything. But before we fully wrap up, Natalie, I've got two important questions that are standbys of the show. I hope you're prepared.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of these you should be prepared for. The first one, what's your favorite type of rock?
Favorite type of rock?
Yes.
Um, I like the smooth, kind of round oval shaped ones you find in rivers.
Okay. Yes. And follow up. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
Uh, yes, but I forgot her name, so give me 2 seconds
Can
because I'm a fake Toho fan.
Can you describe? I might know if you describe her.
Yes,
Is it Clown Piece?
no, she is T-posing as her spell card.
Okay.
Rumia,
Okay.
Yokai of the Dust. Stage 1 boss from Embodiment of Scarlet Devil.
Yeah.
She deserved more.
How many official games does she have? I got a couple.
I think she's just in. Okay, she's a boss in Shoot the Bullet, and then a background character in Hopeless Masquerade. So she technically has 2 games.
Yes. I do one day, like, I want to try that. I just, mostly because I really like that card art in their, like, Slay the Spire kind of Toho game someone made. That has very good card art. And I was like, oh, I want to play that. But then time, those kind of things, they take time.
I mean, Toho games are great ones to just have on
Yeah.
your hard drive and just
I do.
poke at for like 15, 20 minutes every so often.
Yeah, I've got a folder in my extensive folder that says retro. I don't know why it's in there. I just also shove other things in there as well. But it says Toho, and I've got all the Tohos in there.
Yep.
From highly responsive to prayers to whatever the most recent one is called, something about the market or something. I think it has a name. One of those has a name similar to that. But that said, Natalie, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We having a chat. That's Critical, but if we mentioned it sort of. But if people want to find Critical, where can people find Critical?
You can go to critical.com, KRITIQAL.com. You can spell that last bit yourself.
Yes. Yeah, and so if you just remember that, it's just, you've got, or just search it, like we mentioned at either the top of the show or in the pre-show, I don't remember. We've got good SEO.
For all of your treadmill needs.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you've got a bunch. Also, like any good independent arts, you've got a bunch of stuff. The aforementioned Zero Context, or the afro alluded to podcast.
Yes, listen to Zero Context.
Yes.
It's finished now. You have a complete show to listen to, and you don't get that many of those in games.
No, you've got music that may be on that might have been on this very show, but may be on this show next week if you tune in. There's a lot of stuff. You've got a lot of stuff.
Staying busy.
It's a cool thing. Glad you're keeping at it. I don't know how to say that kind of thing without it sounding condescending, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it is.
We have fun.
It is like, really, you're doing the good work or just sticking through attrition, and that's, I think can be hard sometimes for people when they want to start off and be like, oh, I want to have a different voice in games, and then it can be very difficult, if you don't hit anything or it takes a while to establish anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're starting off just making games or writing about games, hey, Critical, it's a good community to check out. Would you call yourself a community? I always wonder about that kind of.
Yeah, yeah. I would say we're probably a community first at this point, honestly.
Right. I always wonder if like people want to use that because community itself feels like an increasingly loaded term.
Nah, we're a community.
Yeah.
We're cool folks over here.
Yeah, they are. It's
Come hang out. We do lots of stuff. We talk about Sonic mostly, but we do
Yeah.
other things.
it's a nice channel that I have in and muted because I have anxiety around Discord channels, but it's full of people that I like. So,
Mm-hmm.
comes
You might be surprised who's in there.
right. You never know. I'm sometimes surprised who's in my own. But yeah, it's a. Anyway, to not just heap praise for the next 30 minutes because I'm gonna end the show and let you go. So much as I could. Fuck, how do I end the show? Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.
See ya.